Story 1. The Girl Who Vanished Behind Aisle. 14. I worked at the Walmart off Cobb Parkway in Marietta, Georgia back in 2013. Late shift. Stocking, folding, pretending not to notice the security guy sleeping in the monitor's room. We had our share of weirdos, drunks, tweakers, high school kids shoplifting body spray and condoms. But there was this one girl. She wasn't like the others. It was September. I remember because the night shift manager, Alan, was bitching about pumpkin spice displays and how no one wants autumn in 95-degree heat. I was folding sweatpants in men's when I heard a whisper in my earpiece. Code 10. Aisle 14. That's the baby aisle. Formula, diapers, the works. Loss prevention guy Jeff got up from his stool and followed the call. I trailed behind, just curious. We found her halfway down the aisle. Petite, twitchy, holding a handbag way too tight. She looked up. Something about her eyes made my chest clench. Not scared, desperate. "Miss, we need to talk," Jeff said, stepping forward. She bolted. Dropped the bag, ran barefoot, full speed, straight past Health Beauty, down into Seasonal, near the locked emergency exit. I followed. I don't know why. Maybe boredom, maybe instinct. I saw her round the corner, and then nothing. No door opened, no footsteps after. She just vanished. No sound, no scream, no doors swinging. When I turned the corner, the aisle was empty. Just some fallen boxes and the blinking of a faulty fluorescent. Jeff got there seconds later. "Where'd she go?" I shrugged. We checked the cameras. The footage showed her running but never leaving. She turned the corner into aisle 17 and just didn't come out the other side. The cops came later. We found the bag she dropped. Inside, a busted flip phone, some ID cards with her name scratched off, a prescription bottle filled with lint. No one ever saw her again. But here's the part I've never told anyone. A week later, I was clocking out. Empty store. Silent. As I passed the baby aisle, my cart bumped something soft. I looked down. A pair of dusty flip-flops. Tiny ones, same shade of teal she was wearing. I asked Jeff about it. He turned pale and said, "You're not the first to see her, but you should stop looking." I couldn't sleep right for days after that night. Nothing officially happened, no death, no lockdown. But every time I passed aisle 14, I felt something crawl up my spine. I tried to tell myself she'd just slipped past us. Maybe got out through the back. Maybe I was just tired. But the following Friday, that theory fell apart. I showed up early for my shift around 9 p.m. The store was quiet, half dark, seasonal aisles already dimmed. In the surveillance room, a new guy was on monitor duty, John. Quiet kid, not dumb. As I passed the room, he stopped me. "You were here the night that girl vanished, right?" I nodded. "You need to see this." He rewound the footage. Timestamp 3:40. 2 a.m. camera. Seasonal. Aisle 17, the exact one she'd vanished into. On screen, dim lights, silence, empty aisle. Then she appeared. Same girl. Same slouch top. Same teal flip-flops, the ones we found and stored in the back. Just standing there. Back to the camera. She didn't move. For 7 full minutes. No motion alerts triggered. "That's not possible," I whispered. John paused the video. Her face, it wasn't right. It was blurred. Like a glitched video file. Corrupted. He skipped ahead, the camera feed cut to black. Just that one. The others were fine. It was like someone unplugged her from the system. Couple hours later, I went down aisle 17 myself. Nothing. But it smelled off. Like sour sweat and iron. And the air was thick, like elevator silence between floors. A pressure you feel behind the eyes. On break, I asked Alan, our overnight manager. Old school guy, hard ass, didn't scare easy. He looked at me and said, "Here's the rule. If the cameras show something they shouldn't, I stop looking. This store's older than you think, and not everything that disappears leaves." After that, footage from camera 17 started appearing on its own. In the system. Files that weren't scheduled, weren't recorded, but were just there. Sometimes, a shadow. Sometimes her shape near the coolers. One file, 23 seconds long, showed her crawling down the aisle, on her elbows, eyes rolled back, mouth open, and someone dragging her by the ankle off screen. Later that night, I walked out into the floor. Camera 17 turned on again. On screen, me, standing in the same place, but behind me, her face. I stopped checking the cameras after that. I didn't want to see myself standing in a hallway I hadn't walked into yet. Didn't want to see what was standing behind me smiling. But the store, it didn't stop. It remembered. And it wanted me to remember too. First, it was the mirrors. There's a little convex one above the toy section, you know, for spotting theft. Been there for years. I've walked under it 100 times. But one night, around 2 a.m., I glanced up and saw myself walking normal, except I wasn't alone. There was a girl walking behind me, barefoot, wearing a torn, dusty shirt, head slightly tilted. But when I turned around, no one. I looked back up, no reflection. Another night, I was in cleaning supplies, mopping up a broken jar of vinegar, bright smell stinging my eyes. I looked into the freezer door on the aisle opposite, just a dull reflection in the polished metal. And she was there again. Closer this time, mouth open like she was screaming, but I couldn't hear a thing. I tried to tell Alan again. He just gave me this tired look and said, "You ever think maybe it's not her haunting this place? Maybe it's the place haunting her." She didn't vanish. She got taken back. I didn't know what that meant. Still don't. Then the lights started flickering in aisle 17, only that aisle. Every single night around 3:15 a.m. the bulbs would buzz and dim. I replaced them myself. Didn't matter. They always flickered again. One time, while changing a bulb, I heard the intercom click on. You know that little click before someone speaks? Except no one said anything. Just a sound. A soft breathing. Shaky, wet, right against the mic. Then it cut off. After that night, she stopped showing up in the cameras. She started showing up in other things. Screens turned off, showing faint reflections that weren't mine. The window in the break room fridge. The puddle of mop water I left too long in seasonal. Even in my damn phone screen when it was powered off. Always her face, smiling, like she knew I wasn't going to tell anyone else. I found a sticky note on my locker last week. No handwriting, just a small grease print like someone pressed their forehead to it. Above it, scrawled in pen, "We keep who stays too long." I don't know who wrote it, but I didn't go to work the next night, or the one after. The store called. HR left a voicemail saying they'd noticed unusual absences. They asked if I was okay. I deleted the message, and still, every night, around 3:15 a.m., my hallway light flickers, just like aisle 17. And when I check the mirror, she's still there, standing just over my shoulder, smiling. They called home. I didn't go back for 2 weeks. No calls, no texts. I ignored the HR voicemails. I didn't even drive past the parking lot. But you can't really quit a place like that, not when it knows your name. The first sign was my phone. I kept it powered off most nights, didn't want to see any screens. One morning, I woke up to find it on, playing a video I'd never recorded. It was security footage. From inside the store, aisle 17. The timestamp said it was filmed 3 days ago, well after I'd stopped showing up. In the footage, a man in a blue vest. Not me, but familiar. He was moving boxes near the coolers, checking inventory like nothing was wrong. Then, suddenly, he stopped, stood still, and slowly looked over his shoulder, at nothing. Except in the reflection of the glass door, she was there, reaching. I remembered him then. His name was Carlos. Worked night stock with me back in 2011. Quiet guy. Wore gloves all the time, even in summer. One night, he just didn't show up. We were told he quit. No notice. No calls, but the footage was dated last week. Carlos hadn't worked there in over a decade. I tried calling the store. Nobody picked up. Just static. Then a beep, then silence. I waited, and on the other end a soft voice whispered, "Still on shift." I started digging. Old employee records, HR files. Anything I could get? There were names I didn't recognize. More than a dozen night workers. All of them marked, "Resigned, no contact." All of them vanished without a trace. I called one of the old floor managers, Marcus. He quit a few years ago, moved out of state. I asked him straight up, "Do you remember a girl disappearing back in 2013? He paused, then said, "The one barefoot?" I didn't answer. He just said, "I don't talk about that store." "You shouldn't either." Then he hung up. That night, I had the dream again. Aisle 17. Flashing lights. Pale tile. Shelves stretching higher than they ever were in real life, and in the middle of the aisle, all of them. Every face I didn't know I remembered. Former workers. Former customers. Frozen. Like mannequins. Except their eyes moved, and they were all looking at me. I went back. Not out of courage, not out of curiosity, out of exhaustion. Something about that place, it sticks under your skin, like dust you can't wash off, like a cough that never fully leaves. I drove into the parking lot at 2:50 a.m. It looked the same. Of course it did. That's the worst part, how normal it always looks. Like nothing strange ever happened. Like it hasn't swallowed people whole. I parked near the back, under the flickering lamp near the garden center. The main doors were locked, but my old keycard still worked. It shouldn't have, but it beeped green. Doors slid open, fluorescents hummed. No alarms, no voices. Inside, the store was dead silent. Too silent. No late-night forklifts, no radios, no music. Just the buzz of ceiling lights and the steady thrum of electricity, and somewhere, behind it all, the faintest clicking. I headed to aisle 17 first. I had to. It looked the same. The lights still flickered. The air still felt colder than it should, but she wasn't there. Not this time. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye. A narrow service corridor between seasonal and storage. It hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had, and we just never looked directly at it. I walked in. No signage, no lights, except for emergency strips along the floor. Dust lined the walls, boxes stacked high, unopened, unmarked. Some of them looked decades old, others looked wet. At the end of the corridor, a single metal door. It was already open. Inside a small room, fluorescent light humming weakly, a desk, a chair, and a binder. I flipped it open. No cover, just names, dates, notes, scribbled in red pen. Carlos Mendoza, last seen, frozen foods, Suzero Kate 7 het, Melissa Green, cleaning crew, Suzero Kate 7 enteret, 17A Jonathan Hicks, stalker, Suzero Kate 7 het observed, then I saw mine, redacted, floor employee, logged, 3:15 a.m., noted. There were no checkouts, no status like left or exited, just one final mark. Watched. I turned the page. It was blank. Except for one phrase, centered, "We keep what the cameras forget." I ran. Out of that hallway. Out of the store. Didn't stop until I reached the car, hands shaking, keys slipping in my grip. When I finally got home, I threw my phone in the freezer. Don't ask why. Something about that felt safer than leaving it on my nightstand watching me. For a few days, nothing happened. I stayed offline. Didn't turn on the lights in my apartment at night. Covered every reflective surface with towels, blankets, whatever I could find. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe that was all it wanted to be noticed. But I was wrong. On the 5th night, I found the notebook. My own. Except I hadn't seen it in years. It was a journal I kept in college. One I lost during a move. Now it was just sitting there. On my kitchen table. Pages filled in my handwriting. Only they weren't entries I remembered writing. October 3rd. Saw her in the mop bucket again. She's getting closer. October 10th. Alan says not to speak about her, but he dreams about her too. October 15th. The mirror in the break room shows tomorrow's shift schedule. October 20th. I saw me, but he smiled first. I flipped to the back. The final page was blank. Then, right in front of me, ink started appearing like an invisible pen dragging itself across the paper. You weren't watching. You were recording. I stared at it for a long time. Then, as if on cue, every light in my apartment flickered. The TV off buzzed once, then lit up. A split-second flash of me, sleeping, then gone. I opened my freezer, my phone was on, battery full, screen unlocked, camera app open, front-facing, recording. I deleted everything, photos, videos, cache. Factory reset the entire thing. Thought that might do it? Thought maybe that would erase her. Instead, something else happened. When the phone rebooted, the gallery was empty, except for one folder, named Still Watching. Inside, hundreds of videos. Some I recognized. From work, from the store. Some I didn't. They were from my apartment, me in the kitchen, me sleeping, me brushing my teeth, all shot from angles I didn't have. But in each one, there was always something else in the frame. Sometimes a blur in the mirror. Sometimes a shadow across the doorway. Sometimes just her, smiling. Then came the video that broke me. It was a screen recording. My own eyes, looking down at a camera, speaking into it, saying, "Shift 23 complete." Subject unaware of integration. Then smiling, just like her. I stopped answering the phone, stopped checking the door. The world outside didn't feel real anymore, just noise between rewinds. Because somewhere deep down, I started to understand. I wasn't living anymore. I was looping. It hit me the night I found the shift badge. My old Walmart badge. The one I threw out when I quit. It was back on my dresser. Still cracked down the middle. Still stained with something reddish I never quite cleaned off. Only now the name was wrong. It still said my first name. But the last name? Observer. I thought maybe it was a prank. Maybe I was cracking. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to the store. Again. This time, it let me in without the keycard. Doors opened before I touched them. Lights buzzed to life down aisle 17. And there, in the reflection of the cooler glass, I saw myself. Not as I was, but as I'd been weeks ago, wearing different clothes. Hair shorter, mouth moving, but I couldn't hear what I was saying. Like watching an old VHS tape play itself. I walked deeper into the back corridor. Same flickering path. Same metal door. But now the room beyond it was different. No longer a supply room. Now it looked like a surveillance office. Walls covered in monitors. All black and white. Each one playing me. Different versions, different moments. Some I remembered. Some I didn't. Some, I'm almost sure, haven't happened yet. One screen showed me sleeping. Another, me walking toward the garden center, glancing over my shoulder. Another me staring directly at the camera, unmoving. The longer I watched, the more I felt like I wasn't the one watching. I was the footage. On the center desk, there was a headset. A voice spoke through it, tinny and faint. Playback in progress. Loop 43. Subject, retained. I turned to leave, but the door behind me was gone. The hallway now stretched in both directions endlessly, and every few feet, another monitor. Another version of me. Repeating, looping, breaking, watching. Then, down the corridor, I saw her, walking barefoot, slowly, smiling like always. But this time, she held a shift badge. My name. My real one. And she said, not whispered, but said, "You were never watching me. You were..." I don't know how long I've been here. There's no clock, no sunrise, just fluorescent light that never flickers anymore. Just shelves that stretch forever. Just silence and static. And footage. Always footage. I think the room changes when I sleep. If I even sleep. The monitors rearrange. They show different things now. People I used to work with. Some I barely remember. Some I think were never real. All walking the same aisles, all turning the same corners, all stopping just before they disappear. The screen with my feed, it's different now. It doesn't loop anymore. It builds. Keeps going, keeps recording. Even when I close my eyes, even when I scream, even when I cover the lens, there's always more footage. I tried to leave once. Followed a long corridor marked with exit signs. They pulsed red like veins under the ceiling. Every door I opened brought me back here, to the same cold room, to the same smell of plastic and dust, to the same recording light blinking in the corner. I found a box under one of the desks, labeled Inventory, obsolete. Inside were dozens of name tags. Carlos, Melissa, Jonathan, even Alan, all scratched out. At the very bottom, mine, not scratched. Just glowing faintly like the system still thinks I belong here. And her badge was in there too. But hers wasn't scratched out either. It just read, Active Observation, Level 17. She was never a ghost, never a victim. She was the first observer who stayed too long and became part of the system, just like me. The last time I saw her, she wasn't smiling. She just looked at me and said, "We don't haunt the store. The store haunts itself." Then she walked through the screen, literally through it, like glass bending into water. And now the screen plays something new. A live feed from the break room, where some kid sits alone, typing on his phone, glancing at the mirror on the vending machine, and behind him, reflected, figure, smiling, wearing my vest. The camera zooms in, locks, red light pulses, recording, loop 44, subject, acquired. I understand now. You don't quit this place. You don't get fired. You just become part of the footage.